If we can get back to fundamentals of just understanding your customers, what's important to them, how they view your brand, how they buy, what they need to be to help them in that buying process, and then how do you deliver that sterling experience at every touch point? If you just focus on those core things, you're gonna win a whole lot more than you lose.
Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. The button has been pressed, a simple action of thousands of muscles, little tiny muscles to click that button to start the recording. But I tell you what, this adventure is about to get started. I don't even know what's going on right now, but I'm excited to have this guest back. He was on many moons ago. How many moons ago, Casey? I don't even know, but let's look it up. It's been a long time. He was on show number 48. And as you know, I love reconnecting, and I can't wait to learn from our guest today. We chatted back in 2018. What did I even look like back then? Did I even know anything back then? I don't know, but you know what? We're about to learn a bunch right now. About to have a great time because he's back on the pod for the second time. Well, who is he, Casey? Who is he? Marketing leader, thought leader, award-winning author, friend, coach, executive advisor, but he's also a keynote speaker, a TEDx speaker. My goodness, someone like this should be sharing that information. You know what? Decades of experience, at least 3 decades. We'll cut it off there so we don't know how many more decades, but that means we need to learn from this guy. We're going to crack that head open and learn from him. Since we last chatted, he's got a book, The Un-American Dream. Shots fired. What is that about? That tells you this guest is going to tell it like it is. Co-founder and CEO of Digital Exhaust, Carlos Hidalgo. Welcome, sir.
Casey, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm working on my 4th decade right now, so I've been around quite a while.
4th decade. Can we have a party when you hit the 4th decade mark?
I don't really want to hit the 4th decade. I want to at least be in my retirement by then. But I can't believe it's been 7 years since that first podcast. That is crazy. Time just flies.
Doesn't feel like it. It does, but it doesn't, you know?
Yeah, I was trying to even think like, what was I doing in 2018? It just, I think I was running Vism, CX. It's just nuts. Right. And since that time, I've left Colorado, spent 9 months full-time in an RV, and then moved to upstate New York. So I'm not far from where you are in beautiful New Hampshire. So crazy how time just flies.
And, books keep spilling out of you, all sorts of things. Man, I'm going to pass you this thing. We didn't have it back then when you were around. We notionally passed this, but we're going to physically. Here you go. Go ahead and grab that.
I love that. The Thor hammer.
Grab it? All right.
Yes, I love it.
Wow, that was so. You, ladies and gentlemen, Carlos just picked that up like it was a pickleball racket, but instead it's actually Thor's hammer, the actual hammer from Thor. He gifted it to me. I actually won it in a poker game. But Carlos, take Thor's hammer, smash for me some kind of myth, bogus strategy, misconception, set the record straight once and for all.
Yeah, the big myth that I'm seeing right now, and it's being spread by I don't know by how many, but by a few, is that everything we knew about marketing needs to change. Like, and that's all being predicated on, well, our buyers have changed. Nothing could be further from the truth. Now, let me be clear. Buyers have changed, but they've been changing for the last 15 years. And so the way it's being positioned today, which I think is so utterly confusing to marketing leaders, because I talk to a lot of marketing leaders, is everything you knew about marketing has to go out the window. And that myth has to stop, because I really do think it is a disadvantage to marketers. And actually, one of the individuals that I took exception with is a friend of mine. So he and I were texting, one day after one of his posts.
Do you wanna out him right now? Just totally put him out there on blast?
Yeah, just call him up and be like, "Hey, let's get on the call and get after it." But I said to him, I said, "Hey," I said, "you and I have been doing this a long time." I said, "We know that this old marketing playbook that you're promoting, it's just not true." And I said, "None of what you're talking about is new." And I at least appreciated his honesty over the text. He said, "It's not new to us, but it's new to the up and coming marketer." And I still question that where, okay, I was coached in sports. Good coaches always just say, what are the fundamentals you need to learn first?
Fundamentals.
Get back to the fundamentals. And I firmly believe, having been in this space for 30 plus years, that if marketing departments focused on the fundamentals of marketing, which starts with your customer, things would be going a whole lot different for CMOs across the board. But we are in a state of, and it's not really anything new, but constant whiplash. And I think a lot of it's being driven by vendors who want to sell more stuff. And it's one of the myths that exist out there that I find myself going, why do I get so irritated about this? And the reason is because I think it's really an impediment to marketers.
Yeah, just even thinking about the idea of the tech, and this is almost heresy to say, but the tech getting in the way, like the fundamental of getting in front of your customer and connecting with them. Every time you put a tech in there, it's almost like that puts a little layer, that puts a wall or a paper or a sheet between you and them, and it gets thicker and thicker and thicker. And you're right. Yeah, they're pushing that software, but the software doesn't really ever get you closer to them. It just gets you other things, right? It's not bringing you together.
Yeah, I mean, technology is great. It's sexy, it's fun. But if you look at what Gartner published, I think it was the beginning of last year, that when they surveyed CMOs, only 33% said they're getting full utilization from their tech stack.
Those 33 are lying. Those are liars. They're not fully utilizing.
Whether or not they are, but think about that. Let's just assume that stat is correct.
Sure.
Only 33% are getting full utilization out of their MarTech stack. If I'm a CFO or a CEO, I'm going to my CMO and saying, "What are you doing?" Now, what's crazy is we had that stat, and then research that came out at the end of last year, 2024, showed that this year, marketing expects to increase their spend on MarTech. And technology is great, but it's not a strategy. It's not in and of itself going to get you any closer to your customer. So you have to start to say, what is the problem? And what I'm seeing is a lot of this new throw out the old, start with the new is yes, some of the tech vendors are going to be behind that, but it's also services vendors.
Yeah.
And we're renaming things. And the analogy I use is, if I put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. I can call it whatever I want, but it's still a pig. And when I see these new labels and all this stuff, it's just like, what are we doing? And it's Groundhog's Day, because we saw this with ABM, where everybody became an ABM shop. Everybody was doing ABM.
Yeah.
Services, agencies were all ABM agencies. Well, now everybody's a go-to-market agency overnight. Or we're the AI experts. Okay, well, AI hasn't even been democratized for 2.5 years at this point. How do you have a team of experts? So it's crazy. It's crazy making is what it is.
It is.
And if we can get back to fundamentals of just understanding your customers, what's important to them, how they view your brand, how they buy, what they need to be to help them in that buying process. And then how do you deliver that sterling experience at every touch point? If you just focus on those core things, you're going to win a whole lot more than you lose.
Whoa. Okay. Let's go over that list again. Let's capture that, and we should talk through those points.
Sure.
What are the fundamentals to you?
I think first, everything starts with your customer.
Okay.
Getting to understand and know your customer. And this goes far deeper than just hiring somebody or coming internally and preparing some PowerPoint slides that produce a persona. This is understanding how they think, who's involved, what role they have, what's important to them. Understand we sell to committees. This is another thing that these myth perpetrators of this myth continue to put out there, oh, now we're selling to committees. Well, CEB talked about that 12, 15 years ago. So that's not new. However, oftentimes in a committee, you've sold to committees, I've sold to committees, you start to realize, oh, everybody has a different perspective on this purchase. Everybody has a different bias as to why they want this or why they don't want it. So you really have to understand that, understand the cognitive style of how do they think? How do they want to receive information? How do they want to interact? If we can break that down, that will inform our brand. I saw a really interesting chart the other day, and I can't remember who published it, but they had done a study on all of these companies that were promoting certain things in their brand messaging, innovation, ease of use, cost, sustainability, things like that. Well, then they went out and they researched and surveyed the customers of these companies. What the companies thought was really important and what they were promoting didn't matter to the customers.
Yeah, I bet. I would love to see that chart. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, so you sit there and you say, okay, so this is really interesting. Where's the miss? Well, the miss is you didn't go to your customers to say, what does our brand mean to you? What's our brand truth? What's the value we deliver to you? Because either you didn't do that or you think brand is a color scheme and a logo, right? So everything starts with the customer. Then it infuses how we go to market with our brand, how we generate demand, or at least respond to demand, and how do we tap into that 3% of the market that's in active purchase mode? And then throughout all of that, what is that experience? Because customer experience starts long before anybody buys something. And so I can deliver a sterling brand experience. I can deliver a great buying experience for my customer if they're a first-time customer. And then how do I onboard them, help them adopt my full solution or service, which interestingly enough, I don't have any hardcore research to see how I worked in the name of your podcast there.
Love that.
Any hardcore research to show this,
Good branding.
right?
We need hardcore research. I need to make that a company,
Hardcore research. There you go. There's your next after you sell this one, after
Right?
you get the $100 million from Spotify,
That's
you
it.
can go start hardcore research.
That's it.
But what we've seen is that onboarding and adoption phase is so critical to retention. And so then once you get that, that's when you can start to upsell, cross-sell, drive retention, and that's where you create customer advocates. But I find more and more brands are rushing to, oh, well, we have a PLG motion, or, we have whatever motion you want to put in. And we have all these inbounds or outbound. I saw all bound, near bound. I'm like, can we just stop creating more terms and get back to the fundamentals? Understand your customer, let those insights inform your brand, your demand generation discipline, your customer marketing, so on and so forth. If you can do that, and this is a constant gathering of insights. This isn't a workshop led by a consultant or your CMO. It involves marketing, sales, and your customers, and your product, and your customer support team. And it's continual. And that's the way you optimize all of those different disciplines of marketing.
Man. At
that point, that fundamental trumps everything that's out there, even your tech stack.
Yeah, because you actually know them. It's the most important, but I feel like it's the most overlooked fundamental to actually understand our customers. And I know I for sure have I think I know what they want, and so then I just insert my own bias. Right? There's this gap between what they actually want, the chart you're talking about, what they want and what I think they want. And so I'm like, it's like we're hallucinating like an AI and inserting our own bias in there, right? Like we make fun of AI for hallucinating. We do too.
That is such a great example. Well, it's an old story that I've told before, and if I told it to you in 2018, hopefully it'll come across as new because it's been so long. But I remember working with a organization that made software for contact centers, call centers, service centers. And when we first engaged with them, the CMO spent probably 10 minutes showing us this amazing social media strategy that they had put together. They had spent six figures on this strategy. They had bought all this advertising. Well, we started going out and talking to customers. And not once did we hear, in terms of channel preference, social media. So we started to just explicitly ask, what about your use of social media? What we found with the customers is, to a person and to a company, they were saying, when they ran a contact center, they were saying, we don't, not only do we not want to be on social media, one guy actually said, I despise social media. And I said, why is that? He said, it's just another channel where my customers get to complain. And he said, so I don't ever want to be on it. He said, the only reason I'm on it is to field inquiries or service requests for my customers. He goes, but I don't even have a Facebook. I mean, this guy was like so anti, and not all of them were that strong, but to a person. So we had to go back to the CMO and say, hey, that six-figure investment you just made, all that time, guess what? It's like a tree falling in the woods and nobody's there to hear it.
Yeah. Cut and run. Yeah.
Right. And that's just one example. And how many times do we see that where organizations run off and go do this thing because someone has this great idea? And it's like, does your customer even care? And I'm seeing more and more brands forego that step of customer insights. And then they wonder why their marketing isn't working.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you didn't pour the right foundation. You just started to build a house.
Because it looked cool. And I love to, almost like this is an iPhone, and we're going to kind of like expand the fingers to zoom in on this. When it's very casual, we go out and we talk to customers and we find out these guys are complete idiots. Those are my words. But like they didn't talk to them at all. So what do you mean by we go out and talk to customers? Because I feel like that is one of the linchpins where it's just like people are just not doing that.
Yeah, we basically, when we work with a client, if it's anything brand related, if it's anything, well, like I said, brand, customer marketing, cross-sell, upsell motion, demand generation, anything go-to-market related. If they don't have customer insights, that's where we start. And we say, hey, we need to go out and talk to a good sample of your customer base, not just your top customers, but within that segment. And we want to talk to anywhere from 10, 15 to 20 customers. And we just interview them. What was important to you during this process? What initiated this process? If it's more about brand, is what's important to you with a partner or with a vendor? What are the attributes that you want your vendor to have? What do they do for your business? What's kind of the measurements that you put in place? So we really get their perspective. And then we do the firmographic data of the accounts to then say, okay, here's where you're selling or here's where you're marketing. And oftentimes it's not this huge sea change. It's if you just pivot 3 to 4 degrees to the right, now you're going to be in your sweet spot. So I just did that with a customer at the end of last year where we did an assessment. And we found that if they expanded their revenue, so the CEO had said, this is where we sell. And we just said, look, come down one notch in terms of your revenue from an ICP perspective. And it added something like 19,000 potential companies to their serviceable obtainable market.
Wow.
That's pretty significant,
Yeah.
right?
Dang.
And so just that little tweak that we were able to find, because we did some interviewing internally, we looked at their customers, we looked at the data, and then we came back and said, you guys are missing a whole segment of the market. And the tweak was really simple because the kind of companies that were added to that didn't operate any differently than what they were already going after. But they were, because the CEO said, this is where we're going, nobody questioned it. But he himself didn't even go out and do the customer insights. It was just, I know the industry, I know what we sell, so this is what we're going to do.
Dang.
Seems a little strange.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes that CEO hallucination, painting. But like that was my thing. Like I I remember struggling so much as a founder when I built an organization around me that handled everything. The sales was handled, the
Mhm.
delivery was handled, marketing was handled, and I found myself newly in a position where, hey, things are happening around you, but then they're looking at me to set a vision, and I had been
Right.
so removed from the customer that I didn't know where to go next because I wasn't talking to them anymore. It wasn't until I started podcasting and interviewing them where I was like, "Oh, I do know them." Like, I was disconnected, and I had to get reconnected because and then the vision came back, I'm like, "Oh, we can do this and help them with this and that." But, I guess at least for me, I didn't know where to put the vision, but some folks will just make it up based on what they think is the case. But man, how critical is it that you were working our customer insights is like number one. That was like the first step to go if they don't have that. I mean, you don't hear that a lot. You hear buy this tool, buy this ABM thing, which is really just disguised as display marketing, advertising. But like, you have all these different tools, but
Mhm.
man, customer insights really is critical.
Well, it's directional. It'd be like, going in and saying, I'm gonna go set sail for a location, but I'm not gonna use a compass. I'm not gonna use a directional device. I'm just gonna go on feel. Um, okay, let me know how that works. And I've talked to companies who are like, well, we're not gonna invest in that. We're just gonna go and place our bets on some areas and then see what works. I'm like, okay, if you want to do Vegas marketing, that's great. I hope it works, and it may, right? It may. A blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
You know, that's so accurate. That's so accurate. The roulette, right? That roulette table, there's a
Yes. Yeah.
sign that says,
I love
"Here."
roulette.
You do?
I do. I do.
Okay, so there's a sign that this, so a sign that says like, "Oh, the past numbers rolled were this and this and this and this," as if that has anything to do with what the next number is gonna
That's
be,
right.
you know? So it's almost like our marketing, we're looking at all these past numbers. "Oh, 32? Oh, I should definitely bet on that,"
Yeah.
but that's a different outcome.
Yeah, or it hit black 6 times in a row. I need to put it on red. I mean, it's just such randomness,
Yeah.
and what I find is because a lot of companies don't really invest in that ongoing insight and collecting that data to inform, they're using all lagging indicators
Yeah.
to then inform what they want to do in the future. And so you think about ROI. I'm not saying don't measure ROI, we should, but that's a lagging indicator.
100%.
And especially if you have a 6, 9, and you've worked with companies, sometimes big B2B companies that are selling big, hairy, products can have a 24-month sales cycle. So by the time you launch your program or launch your new brand or launch your customer cross-sell and upsell program, by the time they buy something, you're 2 years in the
Oh
rears,
my
even if
gosh.
it's 6 months.
Yeah.
With data, now you're gonna use that data to inform what you do going forward. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
So, put in place some operational discipline to say quarterly, we're going to be getting with our customers. We have the data on how they're interacting with our channels and with our content and with our digital properties. So we can use that in real time to now inform how we optimize these programs going forward. And that's again where I see most companies fall down. And I don't know if it's laziness. I don't know if it's them wanting to get out so fast and move so quickly. But there's a big difference between doing things right and doing things right now, and I prefer to do them right.
Absolutely. You just definitely shook my world a little bit because yes, ROI is lagging, but then the fact that we're multiplying that by the sales cycle, which could be an ungodly amount of time. The thought that
Yeah.
occurred to me when you shared that was, and a lot of marketers aren't going to even survive that period of time, right? Your ROI times your sales cycle, you may not be in a company that long. A year and a half, 2. You may only survive one sales cycle, right? If you're not bringing things in, and so you can't afford to just wait and adjust at the end of one rotation around the sun.
No, you're right, and I haven't seen the stats on latest CMO tenure. It seems to jump up and down, and I think even that is a little bit tainted by CMOs who may move from one organization to another. But, I have talked to CMOs and marketing leaders and demand gen leaders who are saying, we don't know how to use our metrics to demonstrate to our board and to our CEO and CFO the impact we're making." So, this is where we start to go, okay, and we wonder why marketing budgets are the first to get cut. And everybody complains, "We want a seat at the table." I'm like, "Well, we have a seat at the table." Marketing is a growth engine. If you can't understand how to make that a growth engine and how to demonstrate that to the organization, you're probably in the wrong seat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I see, marketing classes, they try to get at like consumer research, but always in such an
Mhm.
abstracted way. And in the marketing world, we're learning about all the bounds, the inbound, outbound, rebound, right? But no one's really focusing on the customer insights, outbound.
All brown.
I need to invent another bound. Wouldn't it be funny if we did a whole like a conference called Rebound, you know? It all we did was rehash all the conference materials from, like, 5 years ago, just, like, same presentations, everything, just rehash everything.
And give everybody, all the attendees, a bingo card. So every time they hear
Yes,
yeah, I think, what was the one I heard the other day? All bound. It's all bound or near bound. And I'm like,
all bound.
it's ridiculous is what it is. But again, we're causing whiplash. And I did talk to a CEO of a mid-market who said, "I wish my CMO would pick a lane and stay in it." He said, "Every time I turn around," he said, "I feel like every quarter they pick a new strategy." That's a CMO that's not gonna last long. And again, not all the blame goes on the vendors that are purporting these myths. Some of the responsibility does lie with these marketing leaders, but it doesn't help when you see everybody. It's like this huge shift. Again, go find an ABM agency where 3 years ago you threw a rock, you hit an ABM agency. Now everybody's go to market.
Go to market.
Well, what happens when what's the next big fad that's gonna come out? Because look, ABM wasn't new. Sales have been doing ABM decades. Go to market's
Right.
not new. Jim Collins, I think, was the first one that talked about go to market back in the '80s.
Jeez.
So, we have all these things that are quote unquote new. They're not new.
Right.
And it's detrimental to marketers who are just trying to do their job. And that's why I'm a pretty simple guy. And our
Mm.
tagline is make growth simple. The
Mm.
simplest way that I can grow my company is to understand what's important to my customer. And if I can't deliver it, be honest with them and say, I'm not the person for you or the organization for you. But if I can, do it better than anybody else. Now, there's a lot that goes underneath that. But if I can just focus on that one thing, man, am I going to win a whole lot more than I lose. And I guarantee you, I will absolutely gain traction in the market and grow my company significantly.
It seems like that's the place to start, and this is quickly getting into me trying to take action and solve problems and fix things, because I even think, yeah, how do you know if you know them well enough, you know? Do I know my customers well enough? How much am I hallucinating, or how much do I know the answers?
Yeah, well, one of the things we're working with a company right now where they've done a lot of work on messaging, they've done a lot of work on planning and strategy, and so we're going to be working with them to take a lot of that and bring it to their customers. Now, we're not going to put it up in front of them and say, "Do you agree with this?" Right?
Yeah.
You can't do that, but we know what they're saying about themselves. We're now going to go talk to their customers and say, "How do you view this organization? What's important? What's different about them?" We're going to talk to customers. We're also going to go out and talk to former customers of what happened. Now, it'll be interesting to look at after we're all done, take everything that they say about themselves and then look at what the customers say. If there's a match, great. Now, I don't expect offer. I do expect there's going to be some similarity. Why? Because their CEO makes it a habit to go out routinely and either by phone, video, or in person, talk to their customers. It's one of his top things that he does all the time. Spends time with customers. He gets to know them. That has informed what they're doing from a brand message perspective. So it's not just in his own head where he wakes up one night at 3 a.m. and has this epiphany. It's customer informed. So if you're a marketer, I believe at least once a week, you should be spending time with a customer. They're not sales customers, they're the company's customers. And that's the other thing I hear is we're not allowed to talk to customers. What? How do you market to somebody you're not allowed to speak to? You can't. So go out and talk to them. And I know early, way back when I was with McAfee, I just started to ask salespeople, "Can I come on your sales calls with you? I'm not gonna try to sell. I just wanna listen. I just wanna hear it." And so I would spend about a quarter on the road with multiple salespeople, sitting in on meetings, and then I was hugely involved with our user groups, not from setting them all up, but I wanted to really get and rub elbows with these customers. And it constantly helped us optimize and shift what we were doing from a marketing strategy. And it paid off.
I love those sales calls, joining those. I remember being a young marketer and joining a call at a new company that I had just joined, and sales was like, "What? You want to listen in?" Like they were just like flabbergasted. I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to
Sure.
hear. I want to hear you guys, go to battle, and I want to hear. Yeah, I'll just sit over here in this room." I remember the first question. It was so cringeworthy, as my kids would say. The first question that the prospect asked on the phone call was, "Who are you again, and what do you do?" And I thought, "Yeah, this is not a qualified." When we are harassing someone on the phone, like, man, marketing could do a much better job of, hey, if they're gonna get on the phone with you, perhaps they should know who we are or what we do. And there's so many things came to mind, but like if I hadn't joined the call, I wouldn't realize this is what they're up against, right? They're
Right.
talking to people who have like are starting from zero. And there's so many cool
Mhm.
resources we could have sent them in advance of that to kind of warm the lead a little bit. And this was not a lead. This was like we were, just interrupting someone's day.
Right. Well, and I even think about what happens when a customer purchases something. So oftentimes, I talked about that adoption and onboarding phase of the customer journey.
Yeah.
So often it's, "Hey, thanks for the sale. Meet your account management team and, Godspeed." I really think one of the best things a brand can do, and you don't even need an agency or an outside expert to do this. Marketing should do it along with sales and customer care. The minute I sign a contract, I should be getting an email from the company that says, "Hey, welcome. We're glad you're here. Here's what you can expect next." Literally a step by step. You're going to get this, 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 this. You then follow that up with a BDR to place a phone call and say, "Hey, we just wanted to make sure you got that step. Are there any questions that you have for us?" Because what you're telling them is, we care about you. We respect the fact that you decided to spend money with us, and we want you to have the best experience possible. And then say, "By the way, can we, while I'm on the phone with you," and you can also put this in your email, "we'd like to set up your communication preferences. How do you like to be communicated with? Email, text, phone, weekly account meetings." And if you have thousands of customers, that may not be possible. But just think about that, because so many times, I mean, I've bought product before where you sign the contract and then it's like you're in the middle of the woods by yourself and you're like, Is anybody, what's happening?" It's a crappy experience.
Right. Right. And you were being like handheld, harassed by sales constantly,
Yes.
like we're best friends forever. And then it almost becomes radio silence after that
Hmm.
if you're not careful, because now you're somebody else's problem, I guess. Like yeah, that and it's such a critical moment to set a good experience at the beginning.
It is. It is because I'm really vying at that point to expand as a brand. Not only do I want to deliver that great experience, I want to maximize my customer lifetime value.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do live in experience economy because we are consumers. Even in our B2B world, we are consumers and we want that consumer-like experience.
Yeah.
If I buy a car, which is a huge investment, I kind of expect that dealer to follow up with me and be like, "How's it going?" I expect to be able to bring it into the service department when I need to and be treated well. We should do the same with our B2B customers because they have that consumer expectations because 'cause they're people. They're not accounts or leads or prospects, they're people.
And I think, I understand the lens on sales tends to be very focused on the now, the here and the now, this quarter. But I know marketing historically, we have been the ones zoomed out, able to look at the whole process. So it really is our responsibility to think about the lifetime value, think about the experience beyond like, don't get sucked into the mind warp of sales where we're transactional as well. We have to be that whole picture. I just had a recent conversation on the pod about, maybe even marketing taking over, employees as brand ambassadors, out to the world and helping take that on from HR because employees can be fantastic in that way. So yeah, we have the zoomed out lens. We have to do something with it. We have to, you know, execute on that. Man.
Well, and think about if you got so good at customer insights to be able to really say, "Hey, within this segment," you could almost start to predict your revenue growth based on the insights you're having, what's happening in the market. Um, maybe you're selling to a specific vertical. If you start to see a downturn in that market, you can adjust your revenue projections, but you're never gonna know that until you really sink your teeth into and invest in the data analysis and voice of the customer. That's where it's at, and I was on another podcast with a great colleague and a good friend of mine, and he's like, "I know what you're gonna say because 'cause you've been saying this for the last 20 years." I'm like, "Well, at least I'm known for some."
Right. Right. It it's the same thing, but had you given it a different name, people would think it's something new, but really it is the fundamentals, you know?
Well played, well played. Yeah, you're right.
Um, so customer how does one get good at that? Like I even think as you were describing that, I'm like, man, I feel like I suck at this. And um I want to get better. Like, is it spend time with you and chop some wood so you can teach them while they're helping you out in New York? Or like, how do we get better at insights?
I think it simply starts with a conversation.
Okay.
So if you're listening to this and you're a marketer and say, "Where do I start?" Pick up the phone or send an email to a customer and say, "Can I just grab," and if they're local, "Can I take you to lunch? I would just love to understand the world you live in, what your day to day is like, and what's important to you in your role." And then just sit down and ask questions, not closed ended. Don't try to lead the witness, but really get an understanding of
Yeah.
what's important. What's important to you? What's what are the biggest objectives you have for 2025 and beyond? How do you contribute to the growth goals of your organization? In terms of, and again, whatever you're selling, in terms of what we sell, what's your role in that purchase process? And again, like I mentioned earlier, what do you expect from the vendors that you work with? What's important to you as you interact with brands? Just those questions. You're getting to know the individual within their role. And when you can do that, and again, buy them a meal, buy them a coffee, but don't do a search on LinkedIn, make a connection, and then say, "Hey, do you have time for a virtual coffee for 30 minutes?" I don't, because I don't know you. These are your customers. So respect them, respect their time, or just say, "Can I spend 30 minutes on the phone with you? I'd love to." What I always say is, we want our marketing to connect with you in the best way possible. And the best way I can do that is to understand you at a deeper level. Do you have time to spend? And most of the time you get a yes. And it can be done in 30 minutes. So if you just do that once a week and start to document the notes and then go back and also look at your data and start to analyze the data to see how they're engaging, what are they engaging with, what's important to them, what kind of content, is there a certain theme within that content? And this is ongoing. right? So you're constantly adding to it's like any relationship. When you and I were first on the podcast in 2018, we didn't have the rapport that we do now because we didn't know each other that well,
Right.
right?
Totally.
7 years later, here we go. We've had conversations, we've
Yep.
exchanged emails. So it's not different. We're just people, and people wanna be known.
Yeah. Man, powerful. How do you like you've helped companies do this. This sounds like you have to do this if you're in marketing in some way, shape, or form. It's like, but working with an outside vendor to do this, how do you, is it that's okay? You're doing this for some of your clients. Should they still connect with their buyers?
Uh, they should. They absolutely should. We actually a lot of times will involve a client in that dialogue to kinda show them this is the approach. So we're not gonna ask you to ask any questions, but you can sit. We also do trainings for this where we will go into an organization and we will train them on how to go and do this, even down to here's a list of questions you can start with, and here's how you ask this, and here's who you want to go after, and here's how you take all that data to inform your content strategy, which will then impact your brand, which will impact your demand gen, your customer, or your growth marketing. So we lead them through all of that so they can get a better understanding of how to do it themselves.
Dude, sign me up for that training. That sounds great. Like, so you offer this to your clients of like you either train them how to do it or be involved, but you're helping give them a little kick in the butt to make sure that this actually happens.
Yeah, our whole model, I have no desire to get sticky in an organization. I really
Wow.
and part of it is because 'cause I've just been doing this a long time, but I really, really want to enable and empower marketers to go and do as much themselves and go invest in the channels that your customers are. So if I can get in, teach you to fish, and get out, I've done my job well because then you can take any investment you would put in an agency and put it into growing your company, in other ways. And, I'm not interested in having 5, 6, 7-year clients. I don't even want a 2-year client. I wanna be able to get in, teach you, and then get out.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Dude, let's talk about it. Who would be a great fit to work with you, to reach out? Because I'm sold hearing what you just described just now. Like, you don't want to be sick. You want to train us, get us to the point we need to be, and then make a sneaky exit like Zorro. Leave the H on the wall. You know,
Yeah, not so sneaky. We wanna leave them with, everything they need.
for sure. For
We
sure.
work with we work typically with companies that are in the B2B space across all different verticals. We've got experience, typically in that 25 to about $500 million range is our sweet spot. We do have some enterprise clients that we work with as well. Um, that's more sometimes departmental, sometimes it is more global. But we really find that the smaller organizations in terms of revenue size are the ones that are more adept to change. They can change faster, and they're hungry for it. So that's really where we've focused, and again, in a B2B context.
Dude, where do you want people to go to reach out and contact you, get more information on any of these services, even or just to say hi and thank you for schooling us?
Yeah, you can visit our website, digitalexhaust.co, or you can email me at carlos@digitalexhaust.co, or find me on LinkedIn.
All right, love that. Dude, Carlos, thank you so much for coming on here. It's been so cool to have you back on here. And I remember last time just my brain smoking and it's smoking again after just and if you look the time warp about an hour, poof, now I'm on fire over here. So many things that I want to implement from this conversation. The stats, the 3% who are in the buying cycle, the 33% are actually fully using the thing and not getting in the Groundhog Day. There are just so many takeaways from here, but really, I'm just now obsessed with customer insights from this conversation. So thank you for coming on here.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, and, we'll have to make sure we get a poker game in sometime here in the near future.
Hell yeah, let's do that. That sounds great. Except you're the customer insights guy, so I will probably lose, but that's okay. It's like me and poker is a donation to charity, is what that is. So as long as you're supplying the beer, I'm okay.
Yeah, usually it's for me, but it's still a lot of fun. I just chalk it up to entertainment.
100%. And that and a little skiing too, I think.
There you go. I love it.
Well, hey, for those listening, if you learned something, I mean, I freaking know you did because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back. Run out of space, even did some drawings. I'm excited. I'm gonna keep these notes handy. But if you learned something like this, then share this episode with one person. 9,000 is cool too, but really, is there someone that needs to hear this? Is there someone that's kind of obsessed with the Groundhog Day of the latest GTM, ABM, this thing, next thing? Then maybe you help get them out of that loop and out of Groundhog Day so that they can move forward with some customer insights. Then share this episode with them. Definitely reach out to Carlos. And with that, thank you again, sir. You are the wizard. I appreciate you coming on here.
Thanks, Casey. So good to be with you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And with that, this has been another crazy cool hardcore marketing episode. We will see you all next time.